briefly explaining what each paper is for and what the pencil sets are for. So I'm going to head right into it. Let's talk about watercolor paper. This is Strathmore watercolor cold press paper. You'll see on the papers often how the paper has a certain weight. It might say 60 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever it might say. Basically, the thicker the paper, the better it is when it comes to watercolor. Cold press, when it comes to watercolor paper, it's a lot more thicker. It might be more expensive, and it probably has a little bit more texture to the paper. If you're doing watercolor, you want to have at least 140 up if you're really going to seriously get into it and get it wet. Good watercolor paper you can really actually put underwater. You can actually kind of put it under a faucet if it's really good paper. This paper is 140 pounds. You can't necessarily do that, but it's good. And this pad by Strathmore is not that expensive. So that's that. Here is the Bristol Smooth. Bristol Smooth paper can be used for pens, markers, pencils, color pencils, and it's extremely smooth. They also have vellum, and it's called Bristol Vellum at the bottom. That paper has a little bit more texture. Here's Cansen's. This is their Bristol board, and it's not as smooth, but this particular one has two sides. Out of these two, I like the Strathmore Bristol board. It's thicker, the paper weight is higher. So here, for this one, the paper weight is 100 pounds, and for this one, the paper is 96 pounds. You can actually tell the difference because one paper is heavier than other. I didn't know what that meant, but basically, the higher the paper weight, the heavier the paper is, more like strong and sturdy, and it will last. It's not going to be flimsy like printer paper. Pastel paper. Pastel paper can obviously be used for chalk pastels, and it also can be used for color pencils and everything. So if you're using color pencils, you might want to have a little texture to it so you can build layers up. And this is Strathmore. I'm a big Strathmore fan. Their paper is good. And these sizes of papers, they don't pay more than $10 for these. For none of these, I didn't pay that much. That is actually a high amount to pay $10. I probably paid this I paid for like $3 or $4. This about $7, $8, but I normally don't. This was 40% or $8.40. So for these, I only paid anywhere from $3 to $7. But not all stores are going to be cheap, so I'd say don't go over $10. And watercolor paper is probably going to be a little bit more expensive. Here's another kind of Bristol, the Bristol board. This is it's thicker. I like it. It's not much different from Strathmore, but this might be cheaper. So if you can't afford the Strathmore brand, then go ahead and get this. If it's cheaper. If not, just go ahead and go with your Bristol board. So for sketchbooks, I say for sketchbooks, you're going to get a much lower paper weight, like 60 pounds and everything. And also, it's still, the heavier the paper, the better. It does work with marker. I have a marker drawing in here. So, it does work with marker, but that's professional markers, not Crayola. But basically, if you're going to be carrying your sketchbook around a lot, then get a hardbound, a hard cover sketchbook like this. This just has like regular sketchbook paper or whatever. This is the Moleskine sketchbook. I talked about it before. It's really good paper, really thick paper. It's watercolor paper. This particular one is watercolor paper. It's really thick, really nice. You can use pens. This is pen, and it doesn't show on the other side. It's really good. Oh, they're really expensive too. You can't really get those cheap. I lucked out. Okay, now as for graphite pencils, this video is like 6 minutes, so I'm going to cut it off and make it another video. Alright. Thanks.